Hayward, can you hear us on your end?
You know. Well, you're the mayor pro tem. You know where everyone is. Virtual.
I know where he's at.
Okay. She's virtual. Yeah, and we're done at 7:30. Is that good for you?
I gotta leave here.
No, we all got. Are we recording now?
Oh, you'll know.
Okay, let me know. I didn't hear.
April, are you able to hear us?
Thank you.
There she is.
Susan, you ready to start, Richard?
Yes.
Yes.
No, you're not ready. We're gonna wait on you. Okay. Let's go ahead. We don't have an invocation, so let's, I'm calling to order the special meeting of the City of Mary Esther City Council, July 20th, 2026 at 6 PM. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America.
And now I would like the city clerk to do a roll call of the city council.
Mayor Pro Tem Coxwell.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Present.
Councilmember Carter.
Present.
Councilmember Odom.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Sutton on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now I need she wants to participate virtually. So, can you hear me, April? Just say yes.
She's glitching.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to vote to see if we can include you in on tonight's meeting.
I
So
can't.
do I have a motion?
Can anybody hear me?
I
Yeah.
can, Hayward.
I can't hear April or the
Me?
council chambers.
We hear you.
We can see you too.
We can see you.
Well, it was a little.
Yeah, he needs to hear. Hayward, can you hear me?
That's a no.
No, it's a no, yeah.
He looks frustrated. frustrated.
Looks like you guys can maybe hear me, but I can't hear you.
Correct. Oh,
I mean,
can
I
you
can
see
log
us?
off and log back on. Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
April, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
And see, I can't hear you either.
Okay, then
So
No
maybe
here.
let me log off and I'll log back on real quick.
Want to try that?
yes,
Okay.
yes, that'd be great.
Yes, do it.
April, you can hear us though, can't you?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, let's just continue. Is that okay? Or we need to wait for him to? All right,
All right, I'll make the motion for April to join virtually.
great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a vote? Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, I think we're unanimous on that. Okay, huh? Okay, April, you're on. All right?
Great.
So tonight's approval of the agenda as published. Does anybody wish to make any changes to tonight's agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a first, Ms. Coxwell?
Second.
Second, Mr. Lawson. Okay, let's go ahead. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. April, how do you vote?
I voted yes.
Okay. Oh, so she's okay. Well, then normally I just ask. Okay, we're good.
I can hear you now.
Oh, good.
There's
Thank
Hayward.
you.
Okay, Hayward,
Welcome.
welcome aboard. Okay, unanimous? Well, we haven't gotten to the vote yet. All right, passed, 5-0. Good. All right, item number 6 is new business. 6.1 is discussion fiscal year 2027 comprehensive plan annual review and fiscal year 2027 annual objectives. Did you imagine you want to work on that one?
Yes, sir. So first of all, I'm going to say from the outset that in the future, this is something we will do earlier in the year. But this is a requirement of our comprehensive plan. So it requires that we review the plan goals and for staff to provide basically a status update for where we're at. Now, as you all know, this was adopted last August 19th, 2025. So we have not had a full year of this. And so that's reflected obviously in what's been accomplished. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen if I can, and I'm going to go through the report that we are required to prepare for the council. So give me 1 second and I'm going to get in here. All right. So now you should be able to see the report. Okay. So if you can see that report, you should have it in your packet as well. We went ahead and like I said, we did adopt the comprehensive plan last year. And so there are a few items that we do need to provide you with. One is a staff progress report, which is this report here. A review and prioritization of the focus areas for this next budget year. As you know, about 6 months ago, we adopted a strategic plan, which is a 5-year plan. And so essentially this is just saying, okay, now that we're 6 months into this, what objectives are important for next budget year? And so those are in here, our suggestions for next year. The capital improvements plan, which is part of the budget. So you'll see that as a part of the budget. And then also we do have to put this at least on an agenda for notice for the public. And so we've done that. As far as any plan amendments, the only one that that we may need to address is the school. And I'll get to that here in just a second. So, as I said, the accomplishments, the strategic plan is one that we adopted. We started publishing a monthly report in February on our operations. We adopted the Parks and Recreation Master Plan in February of this year, so that ties into the parks goals. Redevelopment, you'll see this, I believe, at the next council meeting in August, but the community reinvestment area, finding of necessity, or redevelopment agency, I'm sorry, finding of necessity has been completed. And so that will be presented to you for your review. And then finally, when it comes to redevelopment, we do have a planned mixed-use development district plan that staff has and has been reviewing for the Santa Rosa Mall. So those are the big highlights really since last August. On the different elements of the comp plan directly, concurrency. So staff has reviewed development activity and facility capacities for water, sewer, solid waste, drainage, recreation, transportation. No deficiencies have been identified at this point. Transportation. This is something that community development's working on, but just putting together a baseline data for transportation. So sidewalk and bike lanes, intersection improvements, as well as the Okaloosa-Walton TPO puts out a 5-year work program. Housing, the land development code, which is in our budget for next year, will address some of this. Essentially, the comp plan says that we should look at things like missing middle housing, townhomes, duplexes, and so that is something that would be addressed through a land development code update. And so that's the way we recommend addressing it, rather than doing it kind of piecemeal one by one. Infrastructure, there's really not a whole lot to talk about that one. We've got a number of projects which tie into this policy, which are also in your budget. And then public school facilities, we do recommend that we look at this in the next year to update that element, since obviously things have changed with the elementary school closing. And then legislative changes, there haven't been any major ones that we can think of that need to be, that would require an amendment of the comp plan at this time, but we'll keep monitoring that. Obviously, the next legislative session we have, things could change. And finally, as I mentioned, the plan amendment, the one thing that we do need to probably look at is the school. Any questions on that report?
Any questions?
No?
April, you have
Okay.
any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
All right, so then I will move on to the objectives that we're proposing for this next year. I'm just going to go ahead and hit what the 2026 objective was and the status, and then what we're suggesting for next year. So for the first focus area, which is related to the economy, completing a finding of necessity study. As I mentioned, the consultants have completed that, and so that should be at our next council meeting. So that would be removed from next year as an objective. The farmers market, we've deferred this due to funding and frankly just staff capacity. As we know, there have been a lot of things going on in the past few months that we may have to respond to, and so frankly, I don't think we have the capacity for this at this time. But if things change, we could certainly bring it up next year during the fiscal year. Draft and present adoption of the LDC amendments. So we submitted a grant application for funding for this land development code update. We did not receive it the first go around. We've gone ahead and applied again. So we may get some funding. At the end of the day, we do have this in our budget for next year, so we're recommending carrying that forward to next year. Infrastructure, the AMI system, which is essentially a way of remote reading your water meters. We're recommending to put this on hold until we complete one of the items in the budget for next year, which is a work order management system and asset management. system. That will allow us to be able to track our assets better, to be able to see when somebody puts in a request for service, it gets attached to that asset. Once that's done, we do think we should bring the AMI system back because there's definitely a lot of I can see Jacobs is already looking at me because there's a lot of benefit to it. It's just a matter of how much can we do at once and which should come first. The parks plan has been completed. So we do have this as kind of a carry forward, but it's more along the lines of projects for the next year so that we can advance the goals of that plan. Financial sustainability. One of the items here is to put together a long-range financial plan. That's very important for any city in any year. This year is going to be a little different. We kind of thought we would start it earlier with the budget, but honestly, at this point, there's just a lot that can change. And so we do think that's something that we carry forward and kind of have teed up in November. The last two focus areas, community connectivity and public safety, a feasibility study on long-term fire service options. This may be completed by the end of this fiscal year, but if not, we would like to carry that forward to the beginning of next fiscal year. Law enforcement services, I'm sure we'll talk about that tonight. That is a discussion we could have again next year, but technically we did provide the report and we've had that discussion, so that's why I'm suggesting that that be removed. And then the final three objectives, the online permitting system, that is scheduled, I see that correction didn't take, but August 24th of this year is when that will transfer over to our new third-party inspector. And so that process will be done at that point. And then the citizen request tracking system, that's operational. We need to work on, I think, the public outreach a little bit more now that it's up and running. But that one we can remove as well. And then finally, the work order and asset management system, which would serve public works, but also utilities. We've got that in the budget for next year, and so we would like to carry that forward to fiscal year 2027. We're a little bit leaner on the goals this year, and that is for a reason. I think we've got a lot of projects that we really need to focus on to get done. And again, we have a lot of uncertainty. So we'll know a lot more after November what things are going to look like, but we want to make sure that we've got time to actually focus on the priorities. Any questions on these objectives?
Any questions? April, you have any questions?
Yeah, on the Jacobs for the automated meters. That's the one thing that ultimately could potentially save, customers money, and also the city with going out and doing rereads. Is that not something that we can get in sooner?
So you're absolutely right, Councilmember Sutton. I think at the end of the day, it's a project that's going to take. It's one thing to just have the actual radios added, but there's going to be a lot of outreach that's going to be required for that. And so the way that we were kind of looking at this is if we can get the asset management up and running, that maybe 6 months in we come back to council and see if that's something that we can start mid-year.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to keep that as high a priority as feasible.
Okay.
Any more questions? Continue.
That is all I have for this item.
Okay. For that item, we have a motion to accept the fiscal year 2026 staff progress report as the annual comprehensive plan review. Also to approve the proposed fiscal year 2027 annual objectives he went over, and to direct that future annual comprehensive plan reviews be consolidated with the strategic workshop held in April of each year. That'll bring up the date a little bit. Do I have a motion, or do I have a first on this motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Ms. Coxwell has a first. I have a second, Mr. Carter. No more questions, let's go ahead and vote. And it passed 5-0. Good. 6.2 is the next one. There's a discussion of proposed fiscal year 2027 budget and 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yes, sir, and I don't know if you could hear me whining, but when I had to switch to the other screen, that means I have to put this code back in, so give me just 1 second.
Damn it. Damn it, why is it not letting me?
Nope, that's not the one.
And for the general public, this is a discussion. We're not going to vote on 6.2. It's strictly a discussion on budget.
All right, now we've got it. And Mayor, that's correct. So we won't vote on this item, but the next item we will, when we talk about the actual tax levy. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen so that it's a little bit easier to navigate. But I will certainly let you know where we're at. All right, so you might have noticed that the book looks a little different than last year. First of all, we don't typically get this far along at this point in the budget. Our goal is twofold for this. One is to be able to have a document that's a little more accessible online. The second piece is that we are trying to check all the boxes for the Government Finance Officers Association budget award. So similar to the award that we receive for our comprehensive annual financial report. I don't think it's called that anymore. It's called something else now. But we're trying to align our budget document for the budget award. And so that's why you'll see some of these changes. And the final document, we'll still continue to iterate on it to improve it. So that's the first thing. Now you've got a table of contents there on the left to navigate, to go through each section. You can also click on each item within the screen itself. But I'm going to go ahead and hit kind of the highlights of the budget. So the first thing is that this budget has a total of $34 million in resources. That is a large number, but that is our reserves for the general fund, for the utilities fund, and for the sales tax, as well as a number of grants and a number of loans as well for our large capital projects. Also, planned spending is about almost $21 million for this next year. Again, a lot of that has to do with capital projects. So we've got $12.8 million in capital projects and one-time expenses. So that's where that number is represented. As far as taxes for this next year, I believe this will be our 7th year in a row where we have the same tax rate. And so I'll go ahead and just hit on this now, but what that means is that if you are a resident and you have a homesteaded property, your taxes should not go up by more than 3% in a year. Most of the time it's less than that because it is tied to the inflation rate or 3%, no higher than 3%. And so I think that's important to mention. When it comes to the property taxes themselves, it makes up about 37% of our total general fund revenue. This budget, the general fund spending is proposed at just over $7 million, which funds libraries, parks, streets, sidewalks, stormwater, planning and code compliance, police, and fire protection, among others. Fire protection, like in most of our general fund budgets, is the largest single budget. It's approximately 1.22 million for this next proposed fiscal year. And as I mentioned, the budget as a whole, we've got over 12.5 million in capital projects. Priorities for the year, we've discussed a few of them already, but the update to the Land Development Code, which is essentially what governs all development in town. A citywide work order and asset management system, which will help us with short and long-term cost data on every asset that we own. Mary Esther Boulevard median beautification. So we've actually opened bids for this, but that project is likely going to cross over into the next fiscal year. Either that or it'll be finished like the day before the next fiscal year starts. So we want to make sure that we've got the funding in place for that. Library park improvements, which is fencing the large open space that we have next to the park and making some upgrades to the turf. And then completing the funding package for the regional wastewater force main, which, as we all know, is a very large project. For this next year, most of our one-time investments are paid for by grants and low-interest loans. On the operating side, there have been a number of pressures that, just like every other business that we face, one of them being healthcare. And so our healthcare, we haven't received our final proposal from our health care provider yet, but we estimate it's going to be at least 15%, which is a significant increase. We have asked for proposals from some other providers as well, not just for healthcare, but also for property insurance. And then for property and for property insurance, I believe is 14%. Is that the estimate? Yeah. So as of right now, we're estimating a 14% increase for property insurance, which I know will surprise most residents, because property insurance has been an issue, I think, for all of us. General fund is projected to end the fiscal year with $5,086,946, which is about 104% of our operating cost, which is above the council's policy of 50% minimum, plus a natural disaster reserve of $1,413,626, which is obviously, if we need a reminder, today there's a tropical storm or depression out in the Gulf, and so it's important that we have some funding set aside for that as well. Those are the major highlights. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I will move on.
Any questions at this time? Ms. Sutton, you have any questions at this time?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Go continue.
Okay, so this next section, I'm going to just briefly scroll through. But essentially, for those that are not familiar with Mary Esther, this page is intended to give them an idea, some context, so that they can look at our budget based on our population, our land area, full-time staff, as well as a little bit of information on the local economy as well. So our largest employers, Target, the elementary school was second. Piggly Wiggly, Panera Bread, McDonald's, and our largest property taxpayer is Renaissance Mary Esther, which is about 7% of the city's taxable value. Moving on, unless there are any questions here, I will not review this slide. This just shows, again, readers what our organizational structure looks like. This page provides a high-level overview of the budget, where the money comes from, what it's spent on, shows the three funds that we have: the general fund, the utilities fund, and the sales tax fund. This last part at the end, I think, is pretty interesting if you look at it, but essentially looking at just our operating cost, It shows what the cost is to provide services, general fund services for each resident. So it's about $1,000 a year. And in this budget, which is a larger capital budget, almost $500 in capital expenses. Our budget calendar. So this is our budget workshop. At the end of the day, we'll have a number of other opportunities. So if the council would like, we have time set aside for one on the 3rd and the 17th of August. Regardless, we will have two public hearings. Currently, we have them on the schedule for September 8th and September 21st. The budget is a plan, so it can be amended throughout the year. But at the end of the day, what we are locking in with our budget is our tax rate. That is number one. And we are also, typically this is when we would handle our utility rates. I think that could be updated in the middle of the year if we wanted to, but that's not typical. We try to do this all at one time so people know what to expect. This next section, I won't really review in detail, but it does provide a little bit of information for how your tax bill is calculated. So the city's mill levy is only a part of the mill levy. And as I mentioned before, there are some protections that are in that are already state law that protects against significant increases in assessed valuation. And so, as I mentioned, that the Save Our Homes is the one that most of us think about, and your assessed value cannot go up by more than 3% a year or inflation, whichever is lower. If your property is not homesteaded today, the assessed value is capped at 10%. And then this is an overview of our property tax revenue for the past 5 years plus the estimate for next year. On the November ballot, I think we all know there's going to be an item on that ballot. So this just provides a little bit of information on that. And obviously, depending on how that, on the decision, that may impact our next fiscal year. It does not impact fiscal year 2027. And so the actual cap would take, the first part would take effect in January of next year, but that is just to set the values. It doesn't actually impact our budget until October. I will not review the policies. I think we all know them, but again, it's to provide readers, assuming that they don't have any familiarity with the city, with context. Now, on all of our funds, this gives you an overview of the source of funds, how much is available for each fund to be spent, and then also the use of funds. And so you can see that in this current proposed budget, we are projecting balances in the general fund of about 6.7 million, in the general fund, in the utilities fund of about 6.5 million, and in the sales surtax, if those projects are completed that are budgeted for 27, 260,000, which is actually pretty good timing because this revenue runs out, I believe, next year. So we will be able to show that we have spent the funds that we have collected for infrastructure. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Ms. Sutton, you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Please continue.
All right. So looking at the general fund, we've got budgeted revenues at $6,246,717, expenditures of $7,068,132, and our reserves bringing forward about $7.5 million with again, about 6.7 million in projected ending reserves. One thing that I know that we have, that I've discussed with council members individually, was our operating deficit. And so right now, we did make the change going from, the proposed change going from only the step increases to the cost of living, which applies to everyone. So that did increase the number a little bit. And so I will go ahead and show you that number. So it's about 119,615. So our last year's budget, we were projecting a deficit, a structural deficit of about 325,000. It's looking like it's going to be about half that. And then next year, we've brought that down a little bit, which it doesn't look like a huge decrease, but again, some of the headwinds that we've had, things like health insurance, all those costs are going up. So I'm pretty happy to bring that number down. Okay. So revenues by source, this just shows a breakdown: taxes, permits, total revenues, and then spending by program.
Oh, April, you talking? You have a question?
I guess it's still about the deficit. I'm still not comfortable passing a second year budget in a deficit and using reserves.
What do you recommend?
I mean, I'd like to recommend that the city manager go back to the table and figure out where we can cut another 119,000, or at least 75,000.
So I think this is a good opportunity, since I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but a few of the things that we have done to this point. So we've frozen one full-time position in the library. We've frozen a part-time position in parks. Those are the two biggest things that we've done. Other things, frankly, we went through all of our budgets in those areas where we could cut some expenses, like travel was one of them. We've tried to cut those. So we've cut quite a bit at the program level, which you'll see if we look at those program budgets for each department. Beyond that, I know one of the things that I had mentioned in the past was we could, or I do plan to hire an HR consultant, and it's in this budget, to make sure that our compensation and benefits are competitive. And also, if there are any opportunities to restructure moving forward, that they at least look at that and give us some recommendations. But at the end of the day, to cut that, say, in half, again, would be pretty difficult. We'd have to look at some personnel changes. Or revenues. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, sorry,
cut you
that's
off.
the only thing you see then? It would be personnel changes to get rid of 75,000 like she's asking?
Either that or revenues. That's one opportunity. And you'll see those on one of the other attachments that I gave you, regarding property taxes. But yeah, I don't. It's either that or we start cutting some things like software. But even that, I think our entire software budget is around 100,000 for everything.
Ms. Sutton, you have any suggestions?
I mean, I don't suggest we start cutting staff, because we already operate with a very lean staff to begin with. So we're technology. Well, frankly, we're behind technology in a lot of areas compared to other cities. So software is the last thing too. But and maybe we just need to figure out additional revenue sources. So yeah, I'd like to hear some suggestions of how to increase some revenue sources. I mean, because 75,000 would not be that much, but I'd like to know where we could generate those revenue sources where it doesn't have such a negative impact on our citizens either.
Okay, my next question is for the council. Does anybody feel the same way? That we should go back to the drawing board and look for money, or should we just take it out of the savings this year, since it's a definite
If-
reduction from
If I could
300?
add this too, because I do think it's helpful for you all moving forward. But there is another attachment here that does go over revenues and expenses. It really was intended to kind of tee up some of the things that staff is looking at. Should the property tax amendment pass, because there are decisions that will have to be made at that point. But I do think it does provide you with a pretty good kind of idea of expenses and of revenues. One that regardless that you're going to see soon is our 15-year franchise agreement with FPL is up towards the end of this year. Our franchise rate is 3%. And most of the cities charge 6%. Now, at the end of the day, if you increase that, while technically it's FPL that's paying that, it usually gets added on to the bill, the electric bill. So, I don't want to give any, bad information in that, yes, it will be the taxpayers that will be paying it. Did you, Heather, I know you looked to get that information? Yeah, so if you could hear that, municipalities in Okaloosa County, Shalimar was 3, and most of the other cities were 6%.
My question is though, going up from 3 to 6, how much will that give us in additional revenue? Will that
About
make up
100,
the
about
117?
190,000.
So we would actually have a balanced budget if you did that.
Correct.
So that's one option. Okay.
And to be clear, and I know I might just be talking language, but we have a balanced budget because we do have quite a bit in reserves.
Right,
But in
right. I'm
terms
talking
of
about
operating,
no reserve withdrawal.
yes, correct.
Okay, that's what I mean by balanced budget, but different terms.
Question.
Go ahead.
If the franchise checks increased, the homeowner would see an increase in their bill.
Of 3%.
Well, yeah, from 3 to 6. So we would balance our budget on their backs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're paying 3 now.
Right.
So it'd be an additional, so whatever your bill is, throw in 3%. That's what they'll be paying.
Yes. Well, I support Councilman Sutton. If we can manage our budget without having to, or having consecutive years of, in a sense, taking something out of reserves. How much is the HR position?
So that the estimate for that is about 15,000 to do that study. I'm hoping it is less than that.
Not so much the study, but how much would that increase the tax roll, the budget for personnel?
Nothing. It's just a consultant.
You're
So it's just
you're renting a guy.
yeah,
15,000 or 50?
15.
15, okay. Trying to find money somewhere.
I know. Last time we did that, it was considerably less. I want to say the whole study was about 8,500. But it all depends on who's available.
Is there any appetite to increase the millage?
There again, you're putting it on the backs of the citizens, just
I
like
know.
you talked about with the thing. Okay,
I just want to be clear. That's why.
well, appetite. Does council want to raise taxes? No, there's no interest.
I mean, with the question, oops, sorry, with the question if taxes are even going to be a thing in November, I think most communities are just kind of sitting
Yeah, I was
on
gonna
it
say,
anyway.
do we want to raise taxes and then irritate the citizens to vote yes for that, for the amendment, just to get back at the city? I mean, do we want to raise property taxes?
Well, understand my point is to have it out there that we discussed every possibility.
Absolutely.
You know,
No.
I realize, when Council Sutton brought up the 75,000, because of so much uncertainty, almost anything we do could be mute, whether we choose not to raise millage or we do raise millage, so having everything discussed as how we're going to move forward, I think is very relevant and important that we try to exhaust all means to balance the budget for the
Great.
city.
How do you feel about getting rid of the sheriff's contract then?
So don't be facetious. Come on.
No, I'm just saying, that's $360,000 we could save in doing it. That's
No,
putting it out there too.
No, I'm for the contract for public safety reasons.
Okay, well, we have that already. A lot of people argue that. So,
No,
I mean,
sir,
put it
that's,
out on the table.
that's not accurate. You're playing to a melodramatic moment there. Public safety is that is one of the key cornerstone services that the city provides to citizens of Mary Esther. Now, the countywide services, yes, that's one thing that's provided for and taxed. We have been taxing the City of Mary Esther residents for another presence of police services. Now, that's not the part of the discussion that I want to have at this point in time. When you're ready, I'm ready to have that discussion. Right now, the idea of trying to balance the budget with reserves is what the issue is being discussed. Am I correct?
Correct.
What are the options that we have? One was millage rate. I have no appetite to raise taxes, but I think it's a fair question to ask.
right, put it on the table. Everything on the
But
table.
going to the next issue, looking at what revenue sources that we have.
Right, do you have the screen for the revenues that you were,
Yes. So this
Get
is
to that,
the,
maybe
the
we can-
screen here, and the intention behind this was to give a little bit of an overview of what's on the ballot, which for those that are not aware, it's raising the homestead exemption to 150,000 starting January 1, 2027, and then to 250,000 on January 1, 2028, and then indexed to inflation thereafter. This is for homesteaded properties, and looking at Mary Esther's numbers for fiscal year 2028, for when that first 150,000 kicks in, that would be about $393,000 reduction in the general fund. The following year would be about 573,000, and then if it got to a point of the full 500,000 homestead exemption that had been talked about, 704,000. Full homestead exemption, about $809,000 dollars. So that gives you an idea of the impact on the city. Now, what I try to do is put together kind of a menu of options, right? So revenues and expenses. So millage rate was one of them. So for every 0.1 mil, that raises about $46,000 in revenue. The FPL franchise fee, that's about $192,000. We've got, so you have the electric franchise fee, which technically is the electric provider paying for the use of city right-of-way, right? So it's technically it's different. And then there's also an electric utility tax. Again, most cities are around 10%. We are at 10%. However, when this was adopted in, I think it was 97 or 98, there was a $10 cap placed on it. And so once you get to $100, it's capped. Our effective rate is probably closer to 4%. And so we're not close to that 10%. Obviously, if you remove that cap, it would have an impact. It would be for your larger electric users, it would be quite a bit of an impact, more than it would be for like a single family home. Just because if you're a business, like the mall when it was up and running, they probably had a pretty large electric bill and they were capped at $10.
wow,
And so this is another potential revenue. The stormwater utility fee, that's a service that we have to provide. We fund it through the general fund. It's commonplace to fund that through an actual utility fee. So you have a stormwater master plan completed that shows these are the cost of running a stormwater master plan and a rate study to show what's the cost to operate stormwater services. And then also looking at the capital expenses, and that gets packaged as a rate to cover those expenses. So that's another option. Fire assessment, because we contract for fire services, the city could have a fire assessment. And then on the expenditure side, um, we could elect to request to become part of the fire district, which would remove about 1.2 million from the general fund. It doesn't mean that our residents would not pay for that service. They would just be paying directly to Ocean City Right, and Ocean City Right would manage the fire service for the city. The sheriff's contract was another one. And then obviously we could look at service levels and if there were certain services that we wanted to prioritize or deprioritize. And so that's kind of a high level overview. We've already started, looking at some of these numbers for next year, just because we need to be prepared. But happy to answer any questions you have, and certainly it can be part of our budget discussion if you'd like.
Jared, I have a question for you. With the
Yes.
freezing of the one full-time position and the one part-time, what does that save us?
I would have to go back to that spreadsheet. I want to say for the library, it's roughly 70,000.
But that's already included in the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would have to look, I do not recall how much the part-time was, but that was obviously considerably less.
Did the 70,000 include like the benefits package as well for the one full-time position?
Yes, so when we prepare our budget, we are basing it on the person that's in that position. And so if that position does not currently have health insurance, then that's not budgeted. And so in this case, I don't believe that position had health insurance. They had it through a spouse, not through us.
Right. I just want to make sure that we have the numbers so that when citizens do ask, why their electric bill has gone up or their utility fee is higher now, that we can, show that we have made concessions on our city side as well.
So the part-time was about 40,000.
Okay.
Does the early closing on Saturdays go into any of that too?
That keeps us in budget.
Keeps us in the.
Come on up.
My name's Hunter Murphy, Library Director. First time caller, long time listener. So this is that's a good question. This actually keeps us in budget.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would be about $10,000 more to pay for that staffing, but we, kind of work the numbers and we can keep the part-time budget pretty much the same.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well,
Go ahead.
I believe by leading by example. When I went to the Air Force Special Operations Command's Airman of the Year and Air Commando Association, I repaid the city the $80 fee they paid for me to go. I have purchased my own airline ticket to go to the conference in South Florida. I've already told finance I do not want per diem. I think that I don't need enough money because they get enough food down there. I believe in, again, we should tighten our budget, or belts, all of us, and lead by example. The other thing I would remind everyone, and we don't know this yet, as Pat Manning said the other night, we're not exactly sure how all this is going to work out. I don't know if you saw it or not, but the Okaloosa County Commissioners have already decided they're going to raise the sales tax. That's going to help us all some too. The other thing I would remind everyone, as of today, our city hall, they owe us $189,000 and we ain't in there yet. So there's a little bit more money coming our way, or maybe it hasn't gone out yet. So yeah, we all need to, again, look what we have to do to help. And you're right, I'm not exactly fond of putting the burden only on the citizens. I like the sales tax a lot because I see a lot of Michigan, Louisiana, Alaska. Now, granted, some of them are in the military, being ex-military, I realize that. But there is a whole bunch of them today at Starbucks from Texas, and they were speaking Texan. So, yeah, but I'd love to see them all, 12 of them in there eating and drinking because thank you very much. You're helping us economy-wise. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting fall to see how this all works out, is all I'm saying. But yeah, I believe, again, we ought to tighten up and do what now granted, it's a drop in the bucket. I'm not making this $180,000 but I'm trying to help. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Sutton, you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Hayward, you got your tasking?
Yes, sir.
Hayward, you got
Yeah.
up to 180,000 on that contract?
I heard. Yes, sir.
Okay, just make sure. We'll keep giving you the numbers. Okay, in that case, shall we move on? Okay, 6.3 is consideration proposed fiscal year 2027 tentative millage rate and public hearing dates. You want to take that?
Yes, sir. Hold on one second. Let me get to that.
We had him jumping around.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that, though.
You're doing good so far, Jared. Keep
That
it
did
up.
help.
Trying to provide more information. At the end of the day, just to put a button on that, once we get into the next budget year and we get through November, we'll have a lot more clarity. And the budget is simply a planning tool. The biggest thing really is the millage rate, because once that's set for the year. And so if everyone wants to keep that the same, the way it's been the last 7 years, that gives us one answer. The other, like I said, is the utility rates. So those two things really are the most important things that we address right now through the budget. Okay, so consideration of the millage rate and public hearing dates. So you have here our certified gross taxable value, which is about 468 million. The prior year's final gross taxable value was 479 million. So it's actually a decrease of 2.2%. And so we don't really have a typical rollback rate this year. Technically, if you wanted to generate the same amount of revenue, you would have to increase the mill rate just slightly to 5.1268. At our current millage rate of 5.0261 mils, that would raise $2,354,000, which is less than last year's proceeds of $2,407,936. The one thing I want to point out is this is technically what it should raise. We don't ever receive 100%. So when you look at the budget, you're not going to see 100% budgeted there. We do budget some for delinquent as well. So the tentative millage levy tonight is a ceiling. So if there is an interest in raising it, tonight would be the night to have that tentative millage rate set. When we go through the public hearings, you can lower the millage rate. As I said, with the financial impact, 5.0261 mils, that would raise $2,354,119. We budget conservatively, so we have $2,307,625. And I think, did they make another adjustment to this, Heather, recently? Because I think it was, we normally budget 95%. Yeah. The first scheduled public hearing, we do have it planned for September 8th, and a second public hearing for September 21st, both at 6 p.m. So if you approve that, this would be our tentative millage rate, our not to exceed of 5.0261, and we would set those two public hearing dates. In addition to that, I didn't hear anything from the prior discussion, but if council wants to have any additional workshops or discussions about the budget, we do have a month in between. So if you could just let us know tonight, because as we all know, it's always fun to plan out special meetings. With that said, I will pass it over to the mayor.
Thank you. A discussion? Any discussion at all? Ms. Sutton?
No, I don't have any desire to raise the millage.
Okay, well, in that case, pretty much, 6.3 is a motion to set the tentative fiscal year 2027 millage rate at 6.0261 mils and to schedule the first public hearing on a tentative budget and millage for September 8th, 2026 at 6 p.m. and the final public hearing for September 21st, 2026 at 6 p.m., both at City Hall at 195 Cristobal Road, North, and to authorize staff to complete and certify Form DR-420 to the property appraiser. The current year rollback rate is 5.1268 mils, which is higher than the proposed tentative millage rate of 6.0261 mils. First on that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ms. Coxwell got the first. Second. Second was Mr. Oder?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
have one question. Are we really gonna still be here in September?
That was my question, but I kept quiet.
So at the end of the day, when we set that, we have to know with absolute certainty. And once we are able to get in that building, they will then set up the AV system over there. And so I don't want to assume that the AV system will be set up, because that's a city contractor that has to do that, and they have to be scheduled.
How about we modify the motion not to just say City Hall and not put the address? And then we can go, if Mr. Oder's correct, we'll move there. If not, we'll be here. Do we have to have the address?
We have to have the address.
Okay, then the motion stands. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, it passed 5-0. Excellent. Okay, well, is there anything else before we adjourn? Anything from anybody?
No, thank you to the fire department. They
Yeah.
came to the pig last weekend when the kids were there. Nothing was amiss, but they did do a look around before they left. So both trucks showed up.
Good, good.
Just a quick
Oh,
reminder,
and
the ribbon cutting is next Monday at 9 a.m.
Monday at 9. Okay, that's at Azalea Park.
Correct.
Okay.
I will not be here next week. I will be on vacation, but we have staff that are fully capable, and I'm sure we'll have a great showing.
Of cutting a ribbon.
I
Bernie?
won't be there either. I have a doctor's appointment.
Okay. So we're down one.
Be there.
You'll be there, I'll be there, you'll be there, you'll be there. Mr. Carter?
Haven't decided.
You haven't decided, okay.
I'll be there.
You'll be there, great.
Will you be there? Sean will be there.
Good, good. Anything else from anybody? We're adjourned.